Good morning. The Little Engine That Could is the first book that your child will receive from Dolly Parton's Imagination Libraries. These books are free to your children if you register online, and they will receive them from birth to age 5 years old. The importance of reading aloud to your children cannot be emphasized enough. What a great way to start your children loving reading, which is the foundation of learning. So with this particular book, The Little Engine That Could, it's talking about the little engine who never gives up. He keeps trying. You read the book to your children, you might start first with a picture walk and look at all the pictures and talk about these new words that your children don't know yet. And then you can talk about how the words go, and you turn the pages from the left to the right. And so this is a great way to ensure that your children will have a lifelong interest in reading. Start reading to them at a very young age. The second book I want to share with you today is Blue Sky, White Stars. And reading to your young children will extend their attention span. You can talk to them about the pictures, and this particular book talks a lot about the American symbols and how they're so important to the history and the nature of our country today. Red, white, and blue. You can also talk about the people who are on the cover of this book. And you say, do you know any people in our neighborhood or at your school who look like these people? Well, tell me about them. What do they enjoy? Oh, and by the way, can you tell me what this young little boy is holding in his hand? It's an American flag. And then you talk about, well, what might these people be looking at? They're so intently looking at something. And you ask your children to predict what they might be looking at. Well, is it a car passing? Is it something in the sky? Or could it be fireworks? So you talk to your children about making predictions, about the setting and the pictures in the book. And that's a very key component for helping your child learn to love to read. Reading aloud to children also will increase their language development. Hearing you read to them on a regular basis, maybe begin with 10 minutes and try to up it to at least 20 minutes a day, will really make a difference to them hearing proper grammar, hearing words that they've never heard before. So it increases their vocabulary. This particular book is a superbly conceived picture book expressing a joyful spirit of a loving family. It's called A Chair for My Mother. And after a fire destroys their home and possessions, Rosa, the little girl in the story, and her mother and grandmother save and save until they can afford a beautiful, big, comfortable chair. This particular book is a Caldecott Award-winning book. And so when you see these designations on books, you know that they are very well received. So you might start out by taking a picture walk and talking about where Mother works. She works at the Little Tile Diner, Blue Tile Diner. And then you can talk about the jar and how your family might want to save coins and save for a special something for their family, for your family. Then you can share with them the fluency and how you read properly and fluently to your children. Right outside our house stood 2 big fire engines. I see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Lila waved and shouted, "She's here, she's here. She's okay, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her, but everything else in our whole house was spoiled. So that tells you some things that happened, and you noticed my voice and the expression I used. And then the family has decided, well, we need to get some new things for our home. And one of the things we all saved our money for is a beautiful, big, comfortable chair. And it talks about how the family works together to make that dream come true. So as you read to increase children's language development, select topics that you can relate to and talk to about somebody else who had that situation happen to them, or maybe someone in your family. And that can increase empathy and respect and love for others. As you read aloud, the child's imagination is explored. And this particular book is called Xanadu. And Xanadu is an imaginary place back in the Mongolian days. I think it was a summer palace for Genghis Khan. But at any rate, this particular group of educators in North Carolina got together and they selected students throughout the state to write imaginary poetry, dialogue, paintings, illustrations about Xanadu. Well, one student said, Xanadu is the place of peace and harmony. It's a place where humans don't litter. Another child had taken the window panes and he said, these are places of friendship where dreams come true. Each window pane was something different. In Xanadu, people are playing and working and sharing together. In Xanadu, everyone lives in peace. And in Xanadu, there's no pollution and no monsters under my bed and lots of singing. So this is talking about imagining things and using your imagination. Another key component for read alouds includes reading aloud to help your child's comprehension and understanding. This particular book is Mrs. Fitz's Flamingos by Kevin McCloskey. And this takes place in Brooklyn, New York. Now, you may have some family members who live in Brooklyn. You may have traveled there before. So this is a time where you might want to get out a map with children who are older to talk to them about where we live in North Carolina and where New York and Brooklyn are in the United States. And you can talk about Coney Island and the really historic roller coaster. Or you can talk about the Brooklyn Bridge and how all the boats pass through. So that's a little bit about Brooklyn. And there are beautiful sights there, but it just so happens with Mrs. Fitz, this is Mrs. Fitz, she lives in an apartment building and doesn't have a very good view. So she's trying to be imaginative and think of ways to make her view better. So she goes outside and looks to see a salesperson on Pineapple Street, and Mrs. Fitz decides to buy 2 pink flamingos for $3. Well, she loves those little flamingos, and she decides to put them outside her window so she can see them. Well, Mrs. Fitz goes on, and she's decided that she wants to keep buying flamingos until she has a whole flock of flamingos on top of the roof. But guess what? Mrs. Fitz, one evening on her way home, she sees a working crew preparing to knock down a building around the corner of her apartment. It was the warehouse with her flamingos on top. "Stop," she screamed. "You can't tear down that building. Oh, my flamingos." "Stand back, lady," said the foreman. "This building is unsafe. We're knocking it down right now." Well, Mrs. Fitz couldn't stand it. Boom! It was too late. The wrecking ball hit the building. Boom! The wrecking ball began to shake. Boom! The flamingos began to shake. They began to fall. The roof was falling, and the flamingos seemed to stretch their wings, and up, up, up sprang the flamingos, wildly flapping their wings. Then the oldest birds, the pair from Pineapple Street, called out, and the great flock followed behind them. They left Brooklyn and flew toward Florida. So a magic moment, an imaginative moment, occurred in this book, and it was exciting to see what happened to Mrs. Fitz's flamingos. So reading helps us with comprehension and understanding, and we've also got to talk about fiction and nonfiction. You can use magazines, you can use the newspaper to talk about things that have really actually occurred. One article that I found interesting in Time magazine was an NBA player named Stephen Curry, who just happened to be the first NBA player to be tested for the coronavirus. And he was negative, but he and his wife decided they wanted to do something for others. And I was the first one to be tested, and thankfully he said my test came back negative. But my wife said, you know, we need to be the village to help people who are in need. So Stephen suggests to us, whether it's giving blood donations, giving to your local food bank, checking on your elderly neighbors, or even staying at home, small gestures in times like this can end up being big gestures to make all the difference. Well, that was one article, but also in a People magazine, many of you know about The Rock, and The Rock's family tested positive for COVID-19. And he tells about what happened with his family. He said, I'd much rather it have been just me, but his two daughters and his wife also got the virus. The daughters were not as negatively impacted as he and his wife, but they're healthy now and they've overcome it. So talking about nonfiction components of reading and information you as the parent read and model to your children is a great foundation for young children to know about. So as we close, it's last but certainly not least, reading aloud time is great one-on-one bonding time. So when you're with your children, please enjoy reading together and bonding with your children without even having to leave your living room. That's irreplaceable. Have a great day.